Okay, hi everybody. My name is Kochmola, and today I'm going to tell you about the investments in video game industry. So I think this presentation will be helpful for everybody who is on active fundraising mode, or for everyone who at least have thought about this. So I guess 20-25 minutes is not enough to cover all the aspects of such huge and complex discipline as investment industry. But today I'll cover such topics as what types of investors exist on the market, what are the key factors for success, so how investors make decisions, how funds usually source their deals, what kind of information the investor will expect you to provide, what are the types of deals on the market, and how much time does it usually take to raise funds. Okay, short intro about myself. I joined MRGV in 2017 when the fund just started its operations. So I was among the first 3 employees in the fund. And in MRGV, I'm responsible for everything that is related to investment process. So for screening, for negotiation process, for final terms, I also coordinate the preparation of transaction documents and coordinate, monitor the performance of the company after the deal is closed. So before MRGV, I worked for a number of other PC and private equity funds. So my background is mostly in finance and investment. A couple of words about MRGV. So MRGV is the investment division of My Games, gaming department of Mail.ru. So as My Games, we release more than 60 games projects, including such well-known titles as Warface, Hustle Castle, War Robots. We have 10 in-house game studios and 25 portfolio companies that got funded by MRGV. We are expanding internationally, so that's why we have already 5 operational offices worldwide and above 1,500 employees. MRGV is a corporate venture arm of My Games, and we are focused on strategic investments in video game industry, mostly in free-to-play mobile games, even though we still consider investments in game-related projects or in games based on different platforms. So as strategic partner, we offer more than just money. So for example, all our partners get an access to some ecosystem benefits, such as analytical tools, knowledge, data exchange across all business units, products that have ever been released by Mail.ru. We also help with marketing. So from one side, we can finance marketing spend, and from another side, we have very experienced marketing team skilled in global user acquisition and publishing campaigns across all major platforms. We also have an editorial team. So editorial team provides a very meaningful, detailed feedbacks to all our projects of MRGV. We organize a number of educational and partnership events. So for example, we gather all our portfolio studios together with in-house developers in one place for CEO meetups, where everybody can discuss some controversial issues about marketing, business development, some finance and legal issues as well. And we also organize a game conference, big deal conference, that is held in different cities across Russia. And we have HR support. So by HR support, I mean that we have HR business partner, and this partner can help, for example, in finding the missing employee, or can help to design the motivation policy, as an example. So since 2017, we have invested in 25 video game studios and had 3 acquisitions. So our last acquisition was made this summer. We acquired the company called Svekmasha. This is the Belarus-located studio who are doing interactive story game called Lovesick. Earlier this year, we also acquired the company Panzerdog. So the company has offices in Russia and Finland, and they're working on PvP mobile shooter called Tactical. And our first acquisition was made in 2018, so the company is called Beat Games, and they are doing the game Guild of Heroes. So here on the slide, you can also see some projects where we have the minor stake. Actually, we work very closely with these investments too, and they have already shown very good traction, so we have high expectations about their future. But I think it was enough about us, so let's talk about what you need to know when you talk to the investor. So first of all, you need to understand what kind of investors exist on the market. I would distinguish 3 major types of investors. venture capital, private equity, and strategic investors. Although some companies in the early stages attract money from business angels, but usually it's not that typical for game projects, and characteristics of business angels are somehow similar to venture capital. The most important difference between venture capital and private equity from one side and strategic investors from another side is their final goal. So the first group, they aim to demonstrate a return for their financial investors over a very fixed period of time. So that's why these investors will focus on exits. And strategic investors, they first of all look for the synergy with the potential asset. So that's why they can hold the investment for quite a long time or even forever. VC firms usually have smaller investment ticket sizes. They invest usually companies either on early stages or even seed stages and acquiring up to 30% in the company. Private equity have larger investment ticket size, and they finance mature companies, and usually they have an interest in the control stake in the company. Strategic investors, they're more flexible in terms of company stage and ticket size. And if we're talking about examples for venture capital, there is a trend on the market that there are more and more funds that organized with a very narrow focus on just one specific industry, and gaming is not the exclusion. So, for example, Play Ventures, CISO Ventures, Makers Fund, London Venture Partners, they do investments just in gaming. But at the same time, there are still generalist funds who do investments in many different industries, including gaming, for example, Index Ventures. So among the most prominent private equity funds, I would definitely name KKR and Silver Lake. So for example, KKR has invested in Epic Games together with some other investors. So the total round was above $1 billion. And Silver Lake invested in Unity. I think they gave about $400 million. So among strategic investors, I will definitely name MRGV as part of Mail.ru. But Playrix and Tencent are also good examples for strategic investors. So key factors for success. What you should keep in mind when you talk to investors, because it will affect the final investment decision. So first of all, strong and motivated management team. Although it may sound as a truism, it's obvious that the investor looks for a reliable partner to deal with. So high personal integrity, strong commercial instincts, transparency, flexibility are among the key qualities that the management team should have. It's also important that the company should not be dependent on just one founder. So it's better when there are 2-3 founders in the company. Fair enterprise. Fair enterprise is needed to achieve good return at exits, especially for financial investors. And you also need to find a right balance between too high valuation and too low valuation. Because if the valuation is too high, it will be difficult for a company to raise new rounds with new investors. So the company has to do down rounds, and down rounds are typically viewed as a very negative event. So if the price goes down, it means that something bad is happening in the company. But of course, if the valuation is still low, it will demotivate the founders. Proper deal structuring. So proper deal structuring is needed to minimize the risks for investor and to establish some downside protections. Actually, there are thousands of ways how investor can do this, and this is the topic for the next 10 presentations, I guess. But usually investor will ask for some representation rights and for approval rights to have a right to approve certain matters in the company. So after the deal is closed, the work is not finished, and the investor wants to monitor the performance of the company. So the investor needs a clear roadmap, a fund representative on the board of directors, and investors will usually check financials of the company either on monthly or quarterly basis to compare actual and budget results in the company. Clear exit strategy, well, it's not that relevant for strategic investors, but it's super important for financial investors. So if you talk to financial investor, you need to have a very clear vision of who, when, and for how much will acquire a company. So what are the channels that funds use to find their deals? Proactive research is one of the most used channel. So we in MRGV, for example, monitor new apps in a penny, and if we see that there is a growth in revenue or in downloads, we will definitely want to contact this company. Cold calling. Well, usually this channel is considered not to be the most effective, but we also had a case in MRGV when the company sent us the application to infobox mail, and actually this company got investment from us. So sometimes it helps to use cold calling. Founders Network. I would say this channel provides projects of the highest quality, because founders are the first people in the market who know that there are some new games under development, or that there is a spin-off from the old company who are going to do something new. So I like this one. By intermediaries, I mean different investment banks, consulting agencies, or advisors. So usually they work with larger deals and with mature companies, because their services are quite pricey and startups cannot afford them. And personal professional network, I think it's clear here. Just an advice, if you don't know anybody in the fund, better ask for the introduction by your colleagues. Screening process. This is basically the real snapshot of information request we use in MRGV. Of course, I kind of cut it a little bit, but it still contains the key segments of information request. So first of all, we'll ask for company presentation and for the plan for future development. We'll also do product evaluation, and for this reason we need to have a roadmap with all key features that will be implemented in the product and with clear dates of these implementations. We also ask for key product metrics if they exist. The more information you give us, the better. We also do team evaluation, so we need to understand what is the structure of employees, who are the core team members. We also ask for CV of founders, and what we also do, references from our colleagues. For example, once we had a case when we talked to the company and we were more or less satisfied with the product, but we talked just to CFO and product team. Somehow CEO avoided to talk to us, and we decided to ask references about this guy from our colleagues and from existing investors. And the feedback was so negative, so everybody said to us that this person has conflicts with all investors and with all colleagues. Of course, it was a deal breaker, and we decided not to enter the deal. So be careful about your reputation in the market. Remember about this. Financials. Usually this is the most tricky part for founders. Usually historical numbers are somehow doable for them, but forecast is a really complicated part. So that's why we spent quite a lot of time in MRGV to build a template for financial forecast. So the founder needs just to add some inputs and historical numbers, so it will build the forecast of cash flow automatically. Legal information. So here it's just the basic legal information request, because the proper legal information request will be on the due diligence stage. But on this stage, we need to understand what is the structure of the company, if there are any subsidiaries or affiliates, and we also ask for a cap table. Basically, this is the structure of shareholders and the description of all previous financial rounds. Funding request is also an important part, so we need to understand how much money the company needs and how this money will be used, and the answer should be very clear. Types of deals. Well, there are many different ways how the company can attract money to itself. The key ones are equity tool, debt tool, and project financing. Equity tool can also be done in many different ways. So, for example, it can be the cash-in investment, when the money goes directly to the company bank account, and this money will be spent for further business development. The investment can be done via the cash out, but it means that the investor actually acquires the stake from the existing shareholder. And another tool is convertible loans. This is quasi-instrument between equity and debt. So basically it means that the company gets loan, and this loan might be converted in shares, but there is a lock-up period when the conversion cannot take place. And usually there are some covenants and triggers for the conversion. So let's say a next financial round or some KPIs for the company. The standard limitations are that usually equity deals, they require a lot of preparation and are quite complex in realization. Debt tool is not frequently used for early stage companies because it's really difficult for a game company to attract a loan from banks. They still consider it as a very risky business, and usually they will ask for some collaterals, for example, for personal guarantee from founders, or they will expect a pledge in other assets. But I would say that in gaming, debt instrument is frequently used for marketing financing. And actually in MRGV we also combine these two ways of financing the company. So usually we finance development cost via the equity tool and marketing spend via the debt tool. Why do we do so? The answer is simple, because usually marketing spend for mobile projects is very substantial, and if we do equity investment from the very beginning, when the company is not valued too high, it will dilute the founder's share very significantly. Project financing, I would say that it's not very typical for institutional investors or for VC funds to use project financing, but still sometimes we can see it on the market. So it means that you provide money for project development, and then you receive a share in future revenue. Well, one of the most frequently asked questions that I receive from founders is how much time does it take from sending the application and receiving money to the bank account? So the answer depends on many factors, but on average, the whole process takes about 4 or 5 months. In the best case scenario, it takes about 2 months, and in the worst case scenario, it can last forever, but we had cases when it lasted, let's say, for 8, 12 months. So first of all, when we receive a teaser, we need to check if we have the interest in this project, so we do a quick screening, and usually at this step we also meet with founders or shareholders. So if we have this interest, both parties sign NDA, and afterwards we send this information request I mentioned before, and step 4, step 5 and step 6 can be done in parallel, and usually it takes up to 1 month. So afterwards, if we still have the interest in the project, we start the negotiations to determine the deal price and the deal structure. And after we agreed on terms, we built the proper business case for investment committee. So an MRGV investment committee takes place every twice per month, let's say, in average. And if investment committee approves the deal, we initiate the due diligence process. And usually due diligence can contain such parts as legal due diligence, tax, and finance. So after due diligence is done, we can go for another round of negotiations, because if there are some substantial risks, we need to understand what we'll do with this. Usually it's not a deal breaker, but we will ask either to solve all these risks before we close the deal, or we will put some post-completion obligations with a fixed period of time when the company needs to solve all these risks. Usually it's 3-6 months. So next, we start drafting the transaction documents. Usually equity deals, they involve a large number of different documentations, including shareholders agreement that contains hundreds of pages. And of course, founders need some time to go all through clauses and understand what they mean. So that's why this step usually takes up to 1 month. So, and the most pleasant step is the 12th one, so deal closing and payment. So usually we have a party with founders and with people who were involved during the deal. So actually that's the basic investment process, and I hope it was helpful for you. And as you can see, investment process is not that difficult, so I would encourage you, if you have a product under development and want to raise funds for it, you can send the application to this email and we can talk to you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Maria, for the great